Hey, it's Ben from Soar Fitness, and on this Aspect episode, I'm going to be talking about how can I stop getting gassed and out of breath during WODs. So this question came from Angie Wrightstone. She said, what is your suggestion or what do you do to prevent your nervous system from going into fight or flight mode during a WOD? I find myself smack in the sympathetic nervous system as soon as I hear 3, 2, 1, go. My breathing changes and I feel depleted of energy. What tricks or tips do you use to stay calm? So I love it. I think this is a super common problem that I've seen a lot of people deal with just kind of in typical affiliate class scenarios, especially, or even like local comps, people who are even getting ready for like 5Ks and things like that, who just like during like harder workouts will just get really like almost anxiety ridden, right? So oftentimes we kind of have a lot of just getting bombarded with our senses at the beginning of these things, and it causes us to gas or to blow up or to get out of breath, or whatever kind of terms people use to basically describe like limitations in their ability to be able to handle like their nervous system response and be able to do that in kind of the correct way and find their optimal level of arousal. They're just not quite there. So that's what this is going to be all about, right? Being able to kind of control that response, or be able to have the appropriate nervous system response to prepare you for your optimal performance. So I think first thing here is to understand that fight or flight, right? The sympathetic nervous system response isn't a bad thing depending on the scenario, right? So, and obviously like that serves a purpose. Like the whole idea of like if a bear walks into your cave, you need to have the, okay, obviously like that doesn't happen most of the time anymore. Like certain parts of the world, certain scenarios, unfortunately, like that stuff still does happen. Like you can have an intruder in your house in the middle of the night. You can, your kid can walk out into the street and you have to go chase him like before a car hits him. Like there's a lot of scenarios where that's still useful, but day to day it just doesn't happen as often as it did 10,000 years ago, right? Anyway, that's a different sort of argument. Anyway, understanding that fight or flight in a workout scenario in the 21st century can still be useful. Right? If we have a very high power, high tension, or max lift going on, it's going to be something that we need to be able to handle that response, right? And that can actually be super beneficial, again, in those specific scenarios, kind of heavy lift, high tension, short duration, high power, right? If we can do that, then you're going to be okay. So again, I don't think most people aren't talking about that being like, you don't really get gassed during a max lift most of the time. That's not what we're talking about. So we need to basically understand the autonomic nervous system, and if we're not in basically a scenario where fight or flight is going to be helpful for us, or just in a training scenario where we don't want to be dipping into that all the time, then we need to understand how to kind of avoid the fight or flight, and that's what she's getting at here. So, basically understand that elite athletes who are truly remarkable at what they do are going to be able to understand their autonomic nervous system and be able to turn up or turn down, so to speak, as they need to for the demands of not just a competition, but also training day to day. And the big part of this with parasympathetic dominance is that they're not just able to turn up, but they're able to turn down quickly. Right, so like at the end of the workout, rather than laying on the floor and then carrying that into them driving home, and they're still being in kind of a fog when they get home to their family, within a couple minutes of that workout, they can bring themselves back down, right? And they probably also didn't smash themselves completely into the wall either, which is a whole nother point. All right, so I want to talk more about your ability to regulate your autonomic nervous system. So people think autonomic nervous system like, oh yeah, it's automatic, like you don't control it, which that's not true. Right? So people will be like, oh yeah, I have an automatic car, so I don't shift the gears. Well, technically true, right? But you're in complete control of that, whether you realize it or not. Like, okay, I think most people here have driven an automatic car, so you get the analogy. But understand that, like, okay, when I step on the gas, if I step harder on the gas, I expect it to shift sooner, or actually technically later, right? It'll rev higher. Right? So basically, if I don't want it to rev as high, I don't step on the gas pedal as hard, and it's not going to rev up and kind of hold those gears longer, right? If I'm approaching a hill and I'm getting ready to like basically have a harder effort, and I step on the gas, I start to put on that gas, I expect the car to downshift and to hit a higher gear, right? I expect it to happen. I actually want it to happen, right? So and again, being able to understand, okay, once I start to brake, like, all that stuff that you understand about an automatic car is the same thing with your autonomic nervous system. To say that you don't have control of it would be ridiculous. It'd be no different than being able to say, like, you don't have control of, like, your speed, right? Like, when you're driving. Like, it's just, like, so not true. So you can be able to accurately predict and influence when your body's going to shift into these different states. And it's just a matter of being able to cue and to have the experience and be able to, again, kind of create an actual way for you to train getting into sympathetic versus parasympathetic. And I think being able to do that consistently over the long term is actually a super useful practice because it allows you to, again, create a lot of longevity for yourself. So I think the next piece here is super important. Again, I talked about how the elite athlete is able to turn down, but also realize that innately, I think everybody has this within them, right? So if two specifically incredible examples of this are kids and dogs. All right, so if you, let's start with kids, right? Like if you ever watch a kid and they're like out, they can like play harder than anybody out there, right? Like they'll be like running around, and that's basically a super, like they're not maybe stressed while they're doing it, but they're putting their body into recovery deficit as they're running around and having fun, right? The thing is, when you watch a kid, when they stop and they'll go and crash right away. Like they won't, like you'll see them and they'll be like running around playing, and then they're like all of a sudden sleep like 2 minutes later. It's the same thing with my dog, right? So, Max, come here, bud. Come. But yeah, like he'll be running around going crazy, and then all of a sudden you'll see him laying down and like sleeping. And it's like, how are you able to downshift so quickly, right? It's just like they have a different type of stress, and they, it's just a matter that they can do that, and that they choose to do that, right? And oftentimes we lose that in the 21st century America. Just the go, go, go mentality is not helpful in any way, right? And I could go down that rabbit hole for quite a while, but just understand that part of this whole thing is being able to turn down quickly after a workout as well. So just being able to bring yourself down, calm yourself down, change your breathing patterns, again, be able to get back into a more aerobic state and parasympathetic, right? And again, these are things that are challenging to explain because a lot of people just haven't experienced them since they were like 2 or 3 years old, right? So, again, I could talk more about that, but I'll continue moving on, all right? So I think one of the things that's going to be helpful for, again, pre or post-workout, if it's a longer duration where it's a little bit lower power, or you just think that you have the potential of getting gas or just kind of going out too hot, is practicing parasympathetic breath protocols completely avoid of your workout, right? So like completely set aside. So without like actually being a part of your workout, just say it's during the morning or during your commute or other times, like basically think of it as like almost during like time of meditation, right? Where it's like this separate thing that you do, right? And then eventually you're going to start into add stressors later on, exercise being potentially one of them. But initially it's going to be more about just being able to come down without the stressor, right? So like just life being the stressor. So a few good examples of parasympathetic breath protocols, and I've got a lot more in Breathwork for the Sport of Fitness, my book, but 3 that I say would be super effective for people. One is pranayama, so basically like yoga breathing. Think of it as like essentially a longer exhale than inhale. So maybe you inhale for a 4 count, and then exhale for an 8 count, or inhale for a 3 count, exhale for a 6 count, right? So the exhale is twice as long as the inhale. Box breathing would be number 2. Box breathing, if you think about a box, right? The box is essentially inhale, hold, exhale, pause. Inhale, hold, exhale, pause. And if it's a box, think of it as like a square, right? The boxes are going to be even size. So it might be a 2-second inhale, 2-second hold, 2-second exhale, 2-second pause, or 3-second, 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 4 seconds, 5-second box, a 6-second box, a 10-second box, right? So again, all of those are just going to help promote control of your breath, and if you control your breath, you control your state. Apnea breathing is essentially going to be a little bit more advanced. So just like think of apnea breathing as you're starting to incorporate more holds and pauses. Hold being the top of the breath, pause being the bottom of the breath. So on the exhale or the inhale, essentially, right? So thinking about how can I promote just my ability to be able to breathe in a way that I can control absolutely what I'm doing moment to moment. Level 2 here is once we're able to do that, is to be able to control the breathing, and again, if we control the breathing, we control the state during other types of stress. So let's just stick away from exercise for now. What we could say, the stress could be the cold. All right, so you jump in your car first thing in the morning, and your car is like 20 degrees in it when you jump in. That's a great time to start to introduce stress during your parasympathetic protocol, or during a cold shower, or during heat or cold, or you get on a plane and you have anxiety about flying. That's a really good time to start to control your state. So it's about controlling your state during all types of stress, right? Again, if you recognize that your breathing's off, change your breathing, change your state. All right, and then lastly, I would say are some actually tips and tricks to stay calm before that 3, 2, 1, go. We're kind of like during the beginning of that workout. So firstly, I would say if you're still having issues and you've done all that stuff up to this point consistently over the long term, go back and address the lifestyle, right? Like, so you have to go see that again. If you're still having issues, you're probably not controlling yourself as good as you could outside of sport, right? Or like the workout itself. All right. So next, I would say would be to start incorporating centering breaths. You want to play? So centering breaths are essentially just like a really short parasympathetic protocol to get you to go back into rest or digest before, again, sort of an effort, like a test or even just like a regular workout that you're starting to feel yourself get like anxiety ridden about. Taking a nice long inhale and then just letting it go, right? And doing that in a very controlled environment, right? If you can do that, you're going to be super, or much more calm than you were before, right? And if you can hit 2 or 3 in like of those centering breaths, where it's maybe like a 5-second inhale, 2-second hold, 7-second exhale, if you can do that 2 or 3 times, you're not sympathetic anymore, right? And if you're in that state, you should be perfectly fine to hit that workout. And it's going to take you longer to transition back into more of a sympathetic state. All right? I would say next thing is when you actually go to start your workout, make sure that you are not in a situation that is just going to make it way harder. So like my point is like if the music's like cranked up and you're like blaring it at the top of like the speakers, and like everyone's kind of like jumping around and like super excited for the workout, and like you're like all kind of caught up in it, and it's like 3, 2, the coach is like yelling at you, and then it's like you run out the door and as everyone's like goes off into a sprint like everyone does in CrossFit for some reason, then it's like, well, yeah, you're gonna have a lot of anxiety. So I would say like another thing to think about is like don't go with the crowd, right? Like don't go with the herd. Take your time. Right? Like, be like, okay, I know everyone's going to do X. I'm not going to do that. Right? Like, I know everyone's going to sprint at the beginning of the workout. I know they're going to crank the music, and it's fine, and I don't have to do it. Right? Like, just like a mental change. Like, obviously, like, you're still going to go run at the beginning of the workout, but it's more like, think about it this way, right? If your coach was like, everybody ready? How you feeling today? All right. Give me you good to go. Got your shoes on? All right. Ready? All right. Here we go. And that was the tone, and the music wasn't turned up, and everyone went out in a jog, you probably would have no issues gassing in the first part of the workout, right? Like you just kind of like transition into it. And then after like 50 or 60% of the way through, then you start to pick it up, and there might be a kick, right? But you can take advantage of it at that point, right? Versus not really having options and feeling gassed and not being like, oh, your breathing's all up in your chest and you're like, again, all that stuff's going on, right? So again, think about like music or other people in your environment. All these things are added stressors, right? So if you can, again, learn to control that, learn to control your own mind and state and breathing first, and then you can, again, start to incorporate some of those other stressors. So another kind of thing that I might recommend is if you are in an affiliate where you don't get to control the music or the environment as much, throw in some earplugs, right? I've done that, and it's a really simple way to stop your nervous system from freaking out at the beginning of the workout. And I like to do that during rest days or longer workouts in particular when I know that like I don't want my nervous system to, again, get too excited at that point. So just something else to think about. Think about also like just your vision, like literally how you see in the first part of the workout. Like you want to be able to keep your peripheral vision. So if you are like starting to really like focus really hard and really intently, you're going to start to become more sympathetic, right? Like you're going to get in the fight or flight quicker if you're super focused on something, which is one of the reasons why people are super anxious all the time, is because they're staring at something right in front of their face, like their phone or a laptop screen or TV, right? So if you can literally get out into nature, think about more peripheral vision, less tunnel vision, more relaxed. Your breathing's going to couple with that. All those things are going to allow you to be more relaxed and more sustainable throughout the course of that workout, right? And then I would say the last piece of this is your actual breathing during the workout. So during the first portion of the workout, if you're able to, especially during like more of a rest or lower work time, just start doing nasal breathing, right? And I've talked more about nasal breathing before. Go look at some of those resources. But nasal breathing helps you forces you to stay calmer, right? It forces your breath more down into your belly, so to speak, right? Like more with your diaphragm. You're going to take less up in your chest, and you're just going to, again, be more of a parasympathetic response to your working out, right? And again, that's the case for recovery days and longer duration pieces as well. So those are some of the things that I would think about as you're kind of getting ready to go into the workout. But again, it all starts with the lifestyle stuff, right? So hopefully you guys got something out of that. Hopefully it prevents you from getting gassed and out of breath as quickly in the beginning of your workouts. So thanks for watching. If you got training questions for future Aspen episodes, go down to the form below in the comments, fill that out. I'd be happy to answer future questions that you have. And then head over to zorfitness.com for one-on-one coaching for the sport of fitness. Thanks. We'll see you next time.